Welcome back to the Author's Corner podcast with your favorite writing and book publishing coach, me, Tiffany Dillard. Today, we're going to dive into a crucial step in the book publishing process, which is called developmental editing. If you've ever wondered why some books feel polished, impactful, and engaging, the secret often lies in this stage of editing. So, whether you're writing a Christian nonfiction, a memoir, you're creating a journal, you're creating a devotional, a DIY book, developmental editing is essential to refining your message and making sure your book truly serves its readers. Okay. So go ahead and get your journal, notebook, your snack, your beverage, anything that you need to help you stay engaged with this episode and go ahead and take notes because this is something that you're going to want to write down. This may be something that you need to come back and re-listen to this episode again, so that way you can have full understanding of what developmental editing is and why it is necessary within your book publishing process. Okay, so go ahead and get you what you need, and then come back and join me for an amazing conversation. Welcome back, Kingdom Scribes. So let's dive into this topic about developmental editing because I really want you to have a full understanding of why developmental editing is so important. So, what is developmental editing, you may ask? And developmental editing focuses on the big picture of your book. So, it focuses on its structure, it focuses on the flow, clarity, and overall effectiveness of your book. Unlike proofreading and copy editing, which handles like the grammar and punctuation, developmental editing looks at the heart of your book. So it looks at your message, it looks at your themes, it looks how it kind of checks out how well your ideas connect. So developmental editing is the process that goes into the heart of your book to make sure that everything makes sense. Because sometimes you could be writing and it makes sense to you, but it may not make sense to your reader. It may not make sense to the person who is supposed to make sense to. And so developmental editing is that number one step. I'm going to say it again. Developmental editing is the number one step that needs to be taken and needs to be done so that your book overall is known to make sense, that you are sure that it makes sense. Whoever you have to do developmental editing for you makes sense, or even if you do it yourself, learning what developmental editing is, making it make sense is important, and that's what developmental editing will help you do. Developmental editing also ensures that your book is not just written, but crafted for maximum impact. Because remember, I will continue to tell y'all that our books will change lives. Our books are being left as a legacy in the earth. Our books are going to be the blueprint to help people know that they can be healed, they can be delivered, they can build that business, they can maybe do that craft project, they can write poems, whatever your book is about. Your book is going to impact the world. And one step that can help your book be very impactful is developmental editing. Okay. So you don't want to skip this step. I'm gonna tell you again. Let me give me a drink of water, and then I want y'all to sit with that, and then I'm gonna come back. Okay. You don't want to skip that step. Don't skip it. Don't skip it. I'm telling you as an editor, do not skip that step. You want to make sure that developmental editing is done on your manuscript. And so, for those that may not be convinced that you need to do all of this, I'm going to break down why is developmental editing so important, because somebody is asking that question. Okay, so Why developmental editing is so important? Number one, it clarifies your message. So, especially in Christian nonfiction, where spiritual themes are key, a developmental editor ensures your message is clear, biblically sound, and impactful. So, you can't be out here claiming that you are a Christian and you know God, and the scriptures in your books are all over the place. They're all over the place. They are placed in places in your book that don't make sense. You are not really conveying the message that you need to convey, like clearly. You are quoting things that really are not actual quotes. All of that is part of developmental editing. And that developmental editor will call those things out and say, because you don't, it, they will call those things out because they don't want to cause you or the reader to be confused. Because the goal of writing your book is to keep your book in their hand. The goal of you writing your book is for your book to change lives. Again, I'm going to keep saying this. As long as you keep watching this podcast, I'm going to keep telling you your book is supposed to change people's lives. Period. Okay? And I'm not saying you per se, but God in you, as you are writing, will pour out onto the pages to change people's lives. So you have to make sure that everything makes sense. Another reason why developmental editing is so important is because it helps to improve structure and flow. A great book needs a solid foundation. So let's talk about that. Now, if your relationship with God requires a solid foundation, if your relationship with your spouse or children or friends, your work relationships, if you need a solid foundation, within your finances, like every area of your life requires a solid foundation for it to sustain. Your book also needs a solid foundation. And then an editor can help arrange ideas in a way that makes sense and keeps readers engaged. So sometimes when you're writing your manuscript, you may have it all in the way that you want it to be, but an editor can come in and help try to, rearrange things and say, hey, you may want to take this point and bring it down to probably like chapter 3 or 4, and then bring this point up. Or you may want to go into chapter 5 and reintroduce a point in chapter 5 that you talked about in chapter 4, but give more context in it here, because in chapter 5 you are talking about it a little bit more in a broader way and giving a more wider view of that situation. So bring that point back here and then just add it in and give more context. That is what a developmental editor does, so that everything can flow, so that your reader can leave each chapter with understanding and clarity. And once they close your book, they're like, you know what? I have everything that I need to move forward in what this book was telling me to do. I know from A to B how to do what I need to do. That author took me through their whole entire journey, and as I as I read this book, I felt like I knew them because it was so transparent. The message was so clear. It impacted my life because it makes me, encourages me to be able to move forward. Those are the things that you want your readers to say and feedback and give reviews when they're giving reviews about your book. You want your message to be heard, and you want them to be able to give your message back clearly. Because in that way, they're going to turn around and tell somebody else, hey, go get Tiffany's book. Go get John's book. Go get Letitia's book. It's amazing. It's good. It's necessary for your life. you know? So you want to have a solid foundation, and then you want an editor that can help you arrange your ideas in a way that makes sense and keeps your readers engaged. Another reason why developmental editing is so important is it strengthens engagement. Readers should feel drawn into your words. They should be drawn in. You should be pulling them in to your words. They should not be confused by disorganization or lack of clarity. They should not leave a chapter with questions. Even though you're telling the story, and even though you're saying, like, well, Tiffany, my book has 10 pages. I mean, 10 chapters. I'm sorry, not 10 pages, but 10 chapters. So they're really not getting the full story in chapter 4. But they should not leave chapter 4 with questions about chapter 4. Each chapter should continue to build upon your story. It's like building blocks. It should just be adding more context to your story. Readers should not be sitting there like, okay, I know I finished this chapter and I finished this book, but I'm still confused on what was going on. What happened? Well, what happened to this person? Or, well, what did they do about this? Like, they have so many questions. That's different from providing a story of clarity, and then you have like a live event, which we will have. You have a live event, and then they're coming and they're just wanting to know more, and they have questions. That's different than literally having a reader who's confused, and they're flipping the back of your book and looking at your book description saying, okay, but they said they was talking about this, but when I get in the book, that's not what they're saying. So I want to throw this point out there. Don't think that you have to have 500 pages in your book, all this content, and it don't make any sense. Have this thick book, but none of it makes sense. It's a bunch of jibber jabber. It's a bunch of you rambling through the whole entire book. Nobody wants to read a book about somebody just rambling. You don't want to listen to people that's rambling and they just talking all over the place. And you're gonna, even in that conversation, you're like, okay, hold on, come on, let's bring it to a point. What we talking about here? What you saying here? You know, you want people to give you clarity. You want the conversation to be clear. And if all they're talking about is a whole bunch of nothingness and it's all over the place, that's going to cause you to be confused. And then that's going to cause you to kind of pull back and disengage from the conversation. Your readers will do the same thing with reading your book. Their disengage is going to be closing your book, putting it on their shelf, and going on about their business. And then if somebody comes and says, "Oh, I seen the book, that book. I seen, some advertisement about that book. How was it?" And they're gonna be like, "Child, that author was all over the place. I couldn't even finish it." And that comment right there is gonna shut it down for everybody else. Oh, you couldn't finish the book? You may have somebody that's curious and may say, "Hey, well, let me just read it for myself." But how many of those will you get? Okay. And then the next reason why developmental editing is so important is it prepares your book for publishing success. And that's our goal. Well structured books stand out to publishers, agents, and readers. And so last season we talked about traditional publishing and self publishing. So if you're trying to, um, get your book published with one of these well-known traditional publishing houses, then you want that book to boom, pop, to that publishing house. So that way they can go on and reel you in and get that contract signed so you can get that check, that advance payment check. But even when it comes to a self publisher like New Voice Books, we provide developmental editing services because we want your story to pop out to your readers. We want your readers to be your advertisement, even though you still need to market and promote on your own. We want your readers to be the ones to say, go get this book. Matter of fact, don't worry about it. I'm going to go get it for you. Here you go. It's on the way. You know, we want to help your story to come alive, to literally leap off the pages, that people can see the visual scenes from your book, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, whatever the book may be. And they're like, I get it. I'm right there with you. I'm like, as you're walking through your book, I'm walking through this book with you, and I get it and I understand it. And you want them to like it, love it, and share it. Well, not share your book, but share it so somebody else can go get your book. Because we be needing them coins. Okay. So I hope that answered the question of why is developmental editing so important for that person in the back who said, I don't believe it. I don't think I need to do all that. Well, I hope that answered your question. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the role of the author in developmental editing. Because you may feel like, well, you know what? This ain't got nothing to do with me. This is on the editor. But you have a role in that, in this process as well too. Okay, so sit back, relax, and let me teach you something. Okay. So the role of the author in developmental editing. This is a collaborative process. Collaborative process. Author, editor, editor, author. Okay. This is a collaborative process. Editors don't change your voice, they refine it. I just had to sit with that for a minute. That was good. That was good. That was good. Editors don't change your voice, they refine it. So we're not coming in and tearing down your whole manuscript because it does not sound like us. Any editor that does a first review of your manuscript and they chop your whole manuscript down and all of their suggestion comments are, I would say it, I would say it, I, and they don't take time to really just understand you, understand your personality, understand your voice, and really grab hold to your vision for your target audience, for your readers. And they completely just flip your book upside down and try to silence your voice and input theirs, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And I'm going to tell y'all a story. I had a client who, when she came to me, she just wanted to kind of finish the process of getting her books, her manuscript submitted to the printer, and she wanted to do that part with me. But she asked me, she said, but I want you to just go through and edit it one more time. I just want another set of eyes on my book. She had already had it edited previously by another editor. And I'm thankful that she asked that because as I was going through her book and reading through her book, so I was doing developmental editing on her book. I was doing developmental editing on her book and I started to hear two voices. And I was like, is this me? I know I'm not going a little crazy. So, of course, I went back to God. I prayed And I was like, okay, God, like, what am I hearing? What's happening here? What's going on? And then he was like, continue to read. And so as I continued to read, words started popping out to me. Um, and how they were being used caused those words to pop out to me. I started to Google like different phrases and just to see like where was these phrases and words coming from. So then I went back to her and I said, well, you know what? Is your editor from like London? And she said, yes. How do you know? Because of the research that I did, a lot of the phrases and a lot of the words that editor was using was references from somebody who would be writing a book in London. It made sense. But my client was not from London. She was from America, and she was a Southerner at that. And us Southerners have our own language, our own flow, our own sounds. So that's why I kept hearing two different voices. But instead of that editor refining her voice, they added in their own. And I'm thankful that she went with her gut and her first mind and her discernment and was like, let me just have you edit my book one more time before we're actually done. Because we had time to do it. And when I did that, we had to go back and we had to take a lot of stuff out. We had to rewrite a lot of stuff because she was like, no, that's not what I said. That's not why I was saying that. That's not how I was saying that. So, no. And we had to go back and really change a lot of things so that it could show up in her voice. So, again, editors do not change your voice, they refine it. Okay. And then another role of the editor in the developmental process is be open to feedback. A great editor isn't there to criticize, but to help bring out the best in your book. So if you are operating in the spirit of offense and you don't want nobody to tell you nothing, you need to do your project on your own. Like all of it. And somebody may be saying, well, Tiffany, why are you going to say that? I'm saying it because nobody has time to deal with somebody that does not want to listen. Nobody has time to deal with somebody that does not want to take their feedback. Nobody has time to deal with somebody that does not want to partner on this project. We ain't got time for that. I know I don't. I know I don't. So before you come over here to New Voice Books, take your offense to the Lord in prayer. Okay? Whatever that hurt is, whatever that pain is that's keeping you guarded and making you feel like that you don't want to hear nobody else's voice but your own, you need to go back to God. Because we're not gonna be able to help you over here. We're not. So be open to feedback, okay? Ask yourself, is my book serving its purpose? Does it speak to my audience effectively? Those are questions that you need to ask yourself. And I'm gonna say them again. Is my book serving its purpose? Does it speak to my audience effectively? Those are two questions that you can be asking yourself that can help your editor as well while they're doing their process. Because then you can go back and look at chapters and say, is this chapter serving its purpose? Is this chapter speaking to my audience effectively? You can break it down. You can take these questions all the way back to the brainstorming. Will this topic serve a purpose in my book? Will this topic speak to my audience effectively? You can take it all the way back. You can take it all the way back. So make sure you write those questions down. I'm going to give them to you one more time. Is my book serving its purpose? Does it speak to my audience effectively? And depending on your process or where you are, change the wording to ask that question for that process. Okay. Next, let's talk about how to know if your book needs developmental editing. Because I know I've been feeling that person that's just been sitting back in a corner with their arms folded, like, okay, so when you gonna get to my question? When you gonna get to the topic that's relevant to me? So I think this is for you. Okay. So how to know if your book needs developmental editing. First, if your book feels scattered, lacks clear direction, or doesn't have a strong flow from chapter to chapter, you need developmental editing. Okay? If you're unsure whether your message is resonating with your target audience, you need developmental editing. If readers or better testers say they like the content but feel parts are missing or unclear, you need developmental editing. Want me to run that back? Because I will. Number one, if your book feels scattered, lacks clear direction, or doesn't have a strong flow from chapter to chapter, you need developmental editing. If you're unsure whether your message is resonating with your target audience, you need developmental editing. Better testers say they like the content but feel parts are missing or unclear, you need developmental editing. And somebody may be asking, what is a beta reader or tester? Um, a beta reader or tester is a person that you allow to read an advanced copy of your book. So they're the same type of people. You know how like when a company may put out a product and they have people come in and try the product out or test the product or taste it, they have them do that. That's the same thing when it comes to your book. You're having people to read your book through. They may just read a chapter, they may read the whole manuscript, and they're going to give you feedback on it. And that's good because then that allows you to get feedback from those that are a part of your target audience. So that way you'll know how to move through your book. You may have to change something, may have to give a little bit more context on something. You may be oversharing in one section and you may have to draw back a little bit. So they give you that feedback. And I always say that you want to pick people that are trustworthy when it comes to your manuscript, that when you give them a timeline to get it done, and I only prefer that my clients give better beta testers or readers like 2 weeks to get their book read, to get their manuscript read, and then give them back feedback. You can even use that feedback and kind of, to help you make changes in your manuscript. So, that's who they are. And they are beneficial. And with New Voice Books, I always tell you to find those people. That is the first thing I tell you in our discovery call. When we talk, I always say, who are these people? And if you're like, I don't know, well, pray about it and ask God who those people are and contact them to prepare them for your manuscript. So they already be ready for it. They already know what their position is in this process with you getting your book published. Okay. So my last point is how to find the right developmental editor. Well, you can just come on over to New Voice Books because we got you. But just in case, um, New Voice Books is not where you come. I still want you to have the information that you need to know how to find the right developmental editor. So, one, look for someone with experience in your genre. So, look for somebody that has experience in your genre. There, I just had to repeat it because I just wanted to say it again. That's it. That's all you need to do. Next, ask for a sample edit or portfolio of past work. They should be able to give you that, especially if they have published authors, especially if they have edited others' authors' work. They should be able to give you that. And then make sure they understand your voice and vision. So they should be asking you, what do you see your book doing in the earth? What do you see your book accomplishing? Who is this book for? And you need to know who your book is for. And don't come with that everybody. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't come with that everybody foolishness. Don't do it. Editing should enhance, not erase. Editing should enhance, not erase. Editing should enhance, not erase your unique style. Okay? It should enhance, not erase. No editor, no true editor should just take your manuscript and completely demolish it and make it their own. They're trying to write a book through you, and that's not their place. They're there to help refine it. They're help to be that potter, helping to mold that clay. That's what they're there to do. That's what we're there to do, is to help to bring out your voice. And with New Voice Books, we help you, Kingdom Scribes, stand in full confidence and in boldness in your voice, because it's your story. It's your story. We're not trying to take anything away from you. We want the world to hear you. We want your audience to hear you. That's the whole reason why you're writing the book. That's the whole reason why you're writing the book. Now, lastly, developmental editing isn't just an extra step. It's a necessary one for authors who want to publish a book that truly makes an impact. If you're serious about writing a book that transforms lives, take the time to work with a great developmental editor. We at New Voice Books, that is part of our book publishing process. So that is included in every book publishing package that we offer. We do offer developmental editing just by itself. If that's all you need us to do, then we do offer that as well. So if you want to learn more about our book publishing services and the developmental editing services, go over to our website, nvpublishingco.com. Again, that is nvpublishingco.com. And you can learn more about our book publishing services and packages that we have to offer you, Kingdom Scribes, so that you can leave a legacy of literature in the earth. If you need guidance, reach out to us. Reach out to us. I am open for one-on-one coaching sessions. You can get a 1 hour session with me, and we can talk more about developmental editing, or even doing that little hour session. If you're saying, hey, I just want you to, can you go over this chapter with me and let's kind of walk through it and just let me know what you think and give me some feedback as a developmental editor on this chapter. We can do that. We can do that. At New Voice Books, we're passionate about helping authors bring their vision to life. We want you to birth out what God has placed inside of you. We want you to see the full physical manifestation of what God has been telling you to do for years. And you're like, you know what? I'm on it. I'm about to do it. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to do, Kingdom Scribes. So I want to thank you for tuning in to the Author's Corner podcast. If you found this helpful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share our YouTube channel. Until next time, keep writing, keep believing, and keep using your voice to impact the world. We will change lives one book at a time. Be blessed.